Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the cold metal surface of what they had initially believed to be a meteorite. The object, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Sahara Desert, defied every scientific explanation her team had proposed over the past 6 months. The readings are off the charts again, called Marcus Webb, her research partner, from across the excavation chamber. His voice echoed strangely in the vast underground space they had carved around the mysterious artifact. Whatever this thing is made of, it's not from our periodic table. Sarah stepped back and examined the smooth, obsidian-like surface that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The object stood roughly 30 meters tall and was shaped like a teardrop, with intricate patterns etched across its surface that appeared to shift when viewed from different angles. Most unsettling of all, it emitted a faint humming sound that seemed to resonate in their bones. "Run the spectrographic analysis again," Sarah instructed the team, "and check the electromagnetic readings." Something changed 3 hours ago. The discovery had begun 18 months earlier, when seismic sensors detected an anomaly deep beneath the desert. What started as a geological survey had quickly escalated into the most classified archaeological dig in human history. Governments had taken notice when the first core samples revealed materials that shouldn't exist on Earth. Dr. James Rodriguez, the team's xenogeologist, approached with a tablet displaying real-time data streams. "Sarah, you need to see this. The object's internal temperature has increased by 12 degrees in the past hour. And look at this." He swiped to another screen showing wave patterns. "It's generating some kind of signal. Very low frequency. Almost subsonic." Sarah frowned as she studied the data. "Is it responding to something?" "That's what worries me," Rodriguez replied. "The signal started exactly 47 minutes ago. Same time as those reports came in from the observatories." The reports Rodriguez referenced had sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Radio telescopes around the world had simultaneously detected an unprecedented signal from deep space. Not random cosmic noise, but something structured, purposeful, and growing stronger by the hour. The source appeared to be moving, traveling toward the solar system at impossible speeds. Dr. Chen called Lisa Park, their communications specialist, her voice tight with concern. "I'm getting reports from our colleagues at Arecibo, Jodrell Bank, and the Very Large Array. They're all saying the same thing. The space signal isn't random. It's some kind of countdown." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the underground temperature. Countdown to what? Unknown. But based on the frequency patterns and the approaching source, they estimate approximately 72 hours until whatever it is reaches Earth's orbit. Marcus set down his equipment and joined the group. "You think there's a connection? This thing we dug up and the signal from space?" Before Sarah could respond, the artifact pulsed. A deep, thrumming vibration ran through the chamber, causing loose rock to rain from the ceiling. Emergency lights flickered, and several pieces of equipment sparked and died. "Everyone out!" Sarah shouted. "Now!" The team scrambled toward the tunnel leading to the surface, but Sarah hesitated. As chaos erupted around her, she noticed something impossible. The patterns on the artifact's surface were glowing, pulsing in rhythm with the mysterious space signal they had been monitoring. "Sarah!" Marcus grabbed her arm. "We need to go." But as they reached the tunnel entrance, a voice spoke. Not through their communication devices, not from any external source, but directly into their minds. The words came in perfect English, though somehow they knew it was being translated from something far more ancient. "The Guardians approach. The Sentinel stirs. Humanity's trial begins." The underground chamber fell silent. Even the excavation equipment stopped humming. In that profound quiet, Sarah and her team realized they were no longer alone in the universe. And perhaps they never had been. 2 days later, Sarah stood in a heavily guarded military facility, briefing a room full of officials whose faces she recognized from news broadcasts. General Patricia Hayes, the project's new military overseer, had made it clear that the discovery was now a matter of national security. "Dr. Chen," said Director Michael Crawford of the National Science Foundation, "explain to us again what happened in that chamber." Sarah took a breath. The artifact exhibited increased activity that directly correlated with the approaching extraterrestrial signal. More importantly, it communicated with us. Communicated how? Asked General Hayes. Telepathically. All 6 team members heard the same message simultaneously. The Guardians approach. The Sentinel stirs. Humanity's trial begins. Murmurs rippled through the room. Secretary of Defense William Torres leaned forward. Dr. Chen, are you suggesting this object is some kind of alien technology? I'm suggesting it's something that's been waiting beneath Earth for an unknown period. And it's now responding to whatever is approaching our solar system. Dr. Elizabeth Warner, the project's new xenolinguist, consulted her notes. We've been analyzing the message. The term Sentinel suggests a guardian, or watcher. If this artifact has been monitoring Earth, then perhaps what? General Hayes interrupted. Perhaps humanity is not as alone as we thought. Perhaps we never were. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. A young aide entered and whispered something to General Hayes. Her face went pale. Ladies and gentlemen, the general announced. I've just been informed that the approaching signal has changed course. It's no longer on a trajectory that will pass Earth. It's heading directly for us, and it will arrive in 18 hours. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. General, we need to return to the site immediately. If that artifact is connected to what's coming, it might be our only way to understand their intentions. Absolutely not, Torres responded. We're implementing emergency protocols. That site is being sealed. With respect, sir, Sarah said, standing. Sealing it might be the worst decision we could make. That object responded to the approaching signal. What if it's trying to help us? Or what if it's a Trojan horse that's been waiting for its masters to return? Torres shot back. General Hayes raised her hand for silence. Dr. Chen, you and your core team will return to the site, but under heavy military escort. We need to understand what we're dealing with before that signal reaches Earth. As the meeting dispersed, Sarah caught Dr. Warner's arm. Elizabeth, there's something I didn't mention in the briefing. What? After the initial communication, I stayed near the artifact for several more hours. It spoke to me again, privately. Warner's eyes widened. What did it say? Sarah looked around to ensure they weren't overheard. It said, the children of Earth must remember what they once were, before the shadows consume all light. Children of Earth? What could that mean? I don't know. But I think we're about to find out. Hours later, Sarah and her team descended back into the excavation chamber, now surrounded by armed soldiers and enough military equipment to power a small city. The artifact had changed since their hurried evacuation. The surface patterns glowed brighter, and the humming had evolved into something almost musical. Marcus checked his readings. Sarah, the electromagnetic signature is off the charts. Whatever this thing is preparing for, it's big. Rodriguez pointed to his seismic equipment. I'm detecting movement deep underground. Something vast, maybe several kilometers down. Movement how? Sarah asked. Like something enormous is shifting, turning. As if the entire geological formation is mechanical. Lisa Park monitored communications from the surface. Dr. Chen, observatories worldwide are reporting the same thing. The approaching signal isn't just one source anymore. It's hundreds, maybe thousands of individual signals moving in formation. Sarah approached the artifact again, placing her hand on its surface as she had done countless times before. But this time, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Images flooded her mind. Earth as it was millions of years ago, but different. Cities that defied physics. Reaching toward the stars, beings of incredible technology and wisdom, walking among what looked like early humans. Then darkness, an invasion of shadow-like entities that consumed light itself, and a desperate last stand. She saw the construction of massive sentinels, guardians placed throughout the galaxy to watch for the shadow's return. She saw Earth's sentinel being buried, placed in hibernation along with something else, something precious hidden deep beneath the planet's surface. And she saw humanity, not as random evolution, but as the children of those ancient guardians, their potential locked away until the time of great need. Sarah. Marcus's voice snapped her back to reality. You need to see this. Marcus's voice snapped her back. She opened her eyes to find the entire chamber transformed. The walls themselves were glowing, revealing technology seamlessly integrated into the rock. The artifact was no longer just an object but the visible tip of something massive that extended far below. Dr. Chen, General Hay's voice crackled through the communication system. We're reading massive energy signatures from your location. What's your status? Before Sarah could respond, the artifact spoke again, this time to everyone present. The shadows returned to consume the light of 1 trillion stars. The children of Earth must awaken to their heritage, or all life ends in darkness. The trial begins now. Above ground, every radio telescope on Earth detected the same message, broadcast in every human language simultaneously, and in the skies overhead, the first shadow ships began to darken the stars themselves, as an ancient war that had raged across the galaxy for eons finally came home to Earth. Captain Elena Vasquez watched in growing horror as the first shadow ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Through the bridge windows of the International Space Station, she witnessed something that defied human understanding. The vessels didn't reflect light or cast shadows themselves. Instead, they seemed to devour illumination, creating voids in space where stars simply ceased to exist. ISS, this is Houston Control, came the urgent transmission. Report your status. We're reading massive electromagnetic disturbances throughout the upper atmosphere. Elena keyed her microphone. Houston. We have visual contact with multiple unknown vessels. They appear to be consuming light itself on Earth's surface. Dr. Sarah Chen felt the ground beneath her feet vibrate as something immense stirred in the depths below. The Sentinel had been broadcasting continuously for the past hour, not just to her team, but to every human mind capable of receiving its message. Sarah. Marcus Webb called out, his voice filled with awe. You need to see what's happening to the walls. Oaks, the excavation chamber had completely transformed. What they had thought was natural rock was revealing itself to be advanced technology. Surfaces flowing like liquid metal as ancient systems came online. Holographic displays materialized in the air, showing star maps that stretched across the galaxy. Rodriguez stared at his equipment in disbelief. The seismic readings indicate something the size of a city is rising from beneath us. But it's been here all along, perfectly hidden. The Sentinel's voice echoed through their minds again, clearer now, carrying with it images and knowledge that seemed impossible, yet felt undeniably true. 10 million years ago, the Primarchs of Light seeded this galaxy with life and wonder. They were your ancestors, children of Earth. When the Devourers of Shadow came from the void between galaxies, consuming entire civilizations, the Primarchs made the ultimate sacrifice. Sarah saw it all in vivid detail. Beings of incredible beauty and power, masters of technology that seemed like magic, fighting desperately against entities that existed to unmake reality itself. The shadows didn't just destroy, they erased, leaving behind empty space where entire star systems had once flourished. Rather than flee, the Primarchs chose to scatter their essence across 1 million worlds, hiding their knowledge and power within the genetic code of primitive species. On Earth, they selected early hominids, encoding within them the potential for greatness that could one day awaken. The chamber filled with a brilliant blue light as more systems activated. Lisa Park watched her communication equipment transform before her eyes, interfaces becoming intuitive, responsive to thought rather than touch. The Sentinels were placed to guard these hidden legacies. The voice continued. When the shadows returned, they would awaken both Guardian and Guardian's charge. Humanity, you are not random evolution. You are the sleeping children of the galaxy's greatest civilization. Above ground, General Hayes coordinated humanity's response to the approaching threat. Military bases worldwide had gone to full alert, but their weapons seemed laughably inadequate against forces that could extinguish stars. Dr. Chen, the general's voice crackled through the transformed communication system. We're reading energy signatures from your location that rival small nuclear reactors. What's happening down there? Before Sarah could respond, the chamber began to rise. Not just the room, but the entire complex that had been hidden beneath the desert for eons. Through newly transparent walls, they could see the massive structure extending far below. A combination of technology and living crystal that defied description. "We're ascending," Sarah reported, her voice filled with wonder. The entire facility is rising to the surface. Around the world, similar events were occurring. In the deepest ocean trenches, ancient structures were awakening. Beneath mountain ranges and polar ice caps, hidden installations came online. Humans in remote locations reported strange dreams and sudden knowledge they couldn't explain. Dr. Elizabeth Warner, monitoring global communications from the Military Command Center, documented what appeared to be humanity's greatest crisis transforming into something else entirely. "General Hayes," she reported, "we're receiving reports from every continent. People are experiencing what can only be described as spontaneous understanding of advanced mathematics, physics, and technologies that don't exist yet." What kind of understanding? A construction worker in Tokyo just submitted blueprints for a faster-than-light drive to his local university. A kindergarten teacher in Sao Paulo is calculating gravitational wave patterns. It's as if hidden knowledge is awakening across the entire population. On the space station, Captain Vasquez witnessed the first direct contact with the shadow ships. The vessels surrounded the station but made no aggressive moves. Instead, they seemed to be studying humanity with the cold patience of predators evaluating prey. "Houston. The unknown vessels are maintaining position around us. They're not attacking, but they're definitely not friendly. I can feel something from them. A hunger that goes beyond physical consumption." Through the station's enhanced sensors, Elena could see the shadow ships weren't mechanical in any traditional sense. They were living darkness. Entities that existed to consume not just matter and energy, but the very concept of existence itself. Back on the surface, Sarah watched in amazement as the Sentinel facility completed its rise from the depths. What had once been buried desert was now a crystalline city of impossible beauty. With the Sentinel at its heart, like a living jewel. "The awakening has begun," the Sentinel announced, its voice now audible through speakers that had materialized throughout the facility. But awakening alone is not enough. Humanity must choose to embrace its heritage, or remain as sleeping children while the shadows consume all light. Marcus approached one of the holographic displays, finding he could interact with it intuitively. "Sarah, look at this. It's showing population centers around the globe. Each one has a percentage marker." Sarah studied the display. Awakening percentages. Some areas are showing numbers in the 80s. Others barely reaching 20. "The Primarch legacy responds to conscious choice," the Sentinel explained. "Each human must willingly accept their inheritance. Those who embrace their true nature will gain access to technologies and abilities beyond current imagination. Those who refuse will remain as they were." Rodriguez pointed to another display showing the approaching shadow fleet. "How much time do we have? The Devourers will reach Earth's surface in 6 hours. However, they cannot fully manifest in a reality where light and hope remain strong. If enough humans awaken to their Primarch heritage, the shadows will be forced to retreat, just as they were 10 million years ago." "And if not enough awaken?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "Then Earth joins the countless consumed worlds, and the shadows will have gained enough strength to devour the remainder of the galaxy within a single generation." Around the world, humanity faced an impossible choice. Television broadcasts, radio transmissions, and internet communications carried the Sentinel's message to every corner of the globe. People watched in awe and terror as ancient facilities rose from hidden places, offering knowledge and power beyond their wildest dreams. In major cities, crowds gathered around the emerging structures. Some approached with wonder and acceptance, feeling ancestral memories stirring within their minds. Others fled in fear, unable to accept that everything they had believed about human origins was a lie designed to protect them. Dr. Warner tracked the global response from the command center. "General, the awakening percentages are climbing, but slowly. We're at 37% worldwide. Some regions are embracing the transformation rapidly. Others are actively resisting. What happens if we don't reach critical mass? General Hayes asked. According to the Sentinel's projections, we need at least 60% awakening for the Primarch defenses to activate fully. At current rates, we'll reach maybe 50% before the shadow ships complete their descent. On the space station, Captain Vasquez felt something changing within her own mind. Knowledge that had been dormant was suddenly accessible. She understood the shadow ship's technology, their weaknesses, and their ultimate purpose. "Houston," she transmitted. "I'm receiving what I can only describe as inherited memories. The shadow entities aren't from our universe. They're from the spaces between realities, and they exist to unmake creation itself." "Can they be defeated?" came the urgent response. "Not destroyed," Elena replied, her understanding growing moment by moment. "But they can be forced back to the void where they belong. The Primarchs didn't defeat them through weapons but through the power of conscious creation itself." Below, Sarah felt her own transformation accelerating. Her mind expanded to encompass concepts that would have been incomprehensible hours earlier. She could see the mathematical relationships that governed reality, understand the harmony between matter and energy that the Primarchs had mastered. "It's happening to all of us," Marcus said, his eyes glowing with inner light. "I can feel the awakening spreading through the team." Rodriguez nodded, his hands moving over control interfaces that responded to his thoughts. "The knowledge is incredible, but it comes with responsibility. We're not just gaining power, we're becoming guardians ourselves." The Sentinel pulsed with renewed energy. "The first phase of awakening is complete for those within my influence. But the choice must be made freely by every human alive. The shadows grow stronger as they approach, feeding on fear and despair. Only conscious acceptance of your heritage can provide the light necessary to drive them back." Sarah approached the Sentinel's core, feeling the weight of species-level responsibility. "How do we convince 7 billion people to accept something this impossible in just a few hours? Not through words, child of Earth. Through example." Suddenly, Sarah understood. The awakened humans weren't meant to hide their new abilities or explain them through careful scientific methods. They were meant to demonstrate them, to show their fellow humans what they could become. "We become the proof," she whispered, then louder. "We show them who we really are." Around the globe, the awakened began to reveal themselves. Construction workers built impossible structures with their bare hands. Artists created works that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Musicians composed symphonies that could calm storms and heal the sick. The awakening percentages began to climb more rapidly as humanity witnessed what they could become. But time was running short, and the shadow ships were descending faster now, eager to feed on a partially awakened world before it could fully embrace its destiny. The trial had become a race between enlightenment and extinction, with the fate of not just humanity, but all conscious life in the galaxy hanging in the balance. Maria Santos stood in the middle of downtown Sao Paulo, her hands glowing with energy that shouldn't exist according to any known physics. Around her, thousands of people watched in awe as she demonstrated abilities that defied human understanding. With a gesture, she lifted a damaged building and began repairing it at the molecular level, stone and steel flowing like water before solidifying into perfect structural integrity. "This is who we are," she called out to the growing crowd, her voice carrying impossible distances without amplification. "This is who we've always been." The awakening percentage in Brazil jumped from 41 to 62% in minutes as people witnessed impossible made real. Across the globe, similar demonstrations were occurring as the awakened revealed humanity's hidden potential. Dr. Sarah Chen felt every awakening like a pulse of light in her expanding consciousness. From the Sentinel facility, she could perceive the shadow ships descending through Earth's atmosphere, their hunger growing more intense as they approached a world on the verge of transcendence. 63% global awakening, reported Dr. Warner from the command center. But it's not uniform. Some regions are approaching 90%, while others are barely breaking 30%. The shadows are accelerating their descent, Marcus observed, monitoring displays that now revealed information in ways his pre-awakened mind couldn't have comprehended. They're afraid of what happens when we reach critical mass. Captain Elena Vasquez, still aboard the space station, watched the shadow ships transform as they entered Earth's atmosphere. The entities were shedding their vessel forms, revealing themselves as living darkness that moved like cosmic predators. Houston, the unknowns are no longer maintaining ship configurations. They're becoming something else, pure shadow, but with intelligence and malevolent purpose. Through her enhanced perception, Elena could sense the shadow's true nature. They were beings of uncreation, entities that existed to return the universe to the void from which it came. They fed not on matter or energy, but on the very concepts of existence, hope, and conscious thought. We're tracking their descent path, came the response from Houston. They're heading directly for population centers, major cities worldwide. Below, Sarah felt the Sentinel's urgency increasing. The Devourers target concentrations of consciousness first, the ancient guardian explained. They seek to consume awakening minds before they can fully embrace their heritage. How long do we have? Sarah asked. Moments. But remember, child of Earth, you are not defenseless. You never were. In cities around the world, the shadow entities began to manifest. Unlike the gradual approach of their ships, their terrestrial appearance was sudden and overwhelming. Darkness spread through streets, but it was darkness that devoured light itself, creating zones where illumination simply ceased to exist. In London, Professor James Mitchell felt the approaching shadow like a weight on his soul. The awakening had come to him slowly, understanding building layer by layer, until he grasped his true nature. Now, as darkness crept through the city, he stepped forward to meet it. You shall not pass, he declared, raising hands that blazed with pure light. The words came from inherited memory, a phrase spoken by Primarchs across the galaxy when they made their last stand eons ago. The shadow recoiled, hissing with a sound like reality being torn. Where Mitchell's light touched it, the darkness didn't just retreat, it was transformed back into normal space, stars visible through the cleansed void. In Tokyo, awakened humans joined together, their combined consciousness creating barriers of living light that held the shadows at bay. Similar scenes played out across the globe as humanity discovered they possessed the power to fight beings that had consumed entire star systems. But the shadows were learning, adapting. They began targeting the unawakened populations first, seeking to feed on despair and fear, to strengthen themselves for the battle against humanity's emerging light-bearers. Global awakening at 67%, Dr. Warner reported, her voice tight with strain. But we're losing ground in areas where the shadows have established footholds. Sarah felt the weight of her species' survival pressing down on her. The mathematical truth was stark. They needed 75% awakening to fully activate the Primarch defenses. But the shadow's presence was actually slowing the process as fear spread faster than wonder. We need to reach the unawakened directly, she realized. Not through demonstration, but through connection. The Sentinel pulsed with approval. The network awaits. Child of Earth, link your consciousness with your awakened siblings. Become what the Primarchs were meant to be. Sarah understood instantly. The awakened humans weren't meant to fight as individuals but as a unified consciousness. A living network of light that could span the globe and touch every human mind simultaneously. She reached out with her enhanced awareness, finding Marcus first, then Rodriguez and Lisa. Their minds connected effortlessly, thoughts flowing between them like shared breath. From their joined consciousness, they reached further, finding awakened humans across the continents. In Sao Paulo, Maria felt the connection and added her strength. Professor Mitchell in London joined the growing network. Captain Vasquez linked her consciousness from orbit. Thousands, then millions of awakened minds began to connect, creating something unprecedented in human history. We are one, Sarah whispered, her words echoing through the collective consciousness of awakened humanity. We are the children of light, and we remember our purpose. The network blazed to life, a web of consciousness that spanned the planet. Through this connection, the awakened could reach every human mind simultaneously, sharing not just knowledge but the actual experience of awakening. Across Earth, people felt the touch of the collective consciousness. Fear gave way to understanding. Confusion transformed into recognition. In a surge that defied every projection, the global awakening percentage leaped from 67 to 81% in minutes. The shadows felt it too. For the first time since their arrival, the entities of uncreation encountered something they couldn't immediately consume. Unified consciousness backed by inherited power that spanned eons. Impossible, came a voice like the death of stars, speaking directly into the minds of every human. The sleeping species cannot awaken. The Primarchs are extinct. Their legacy is broken. We are the legacy, humanity responded with one voice through Sarah and the network. We are their children. And we have not forgotten how to create light in the darkness. What followed was a battle unlike anything in recorded history. Not fought with weapons or technology, but with the fundamental forces of creation against uncreation. The awakened humans stood as pillars of light, their consciousness burning away the shadows wherever they touched. The entities fought back, pouring their accumulated power from 1,000,000 consumed worlds into breaking the network of human consciousness. Reality itself became the battlefield as opposing forces of existence and void clashed across dimensions. But humanity had advantages the shadows hadn't expected. Where the Primarchs had fought alone, humans fought as one species with billions of individual perspectives. Where the ancient guardians had relied on technology, humans combined inherited power with the chaotic creativity that made them uniquely adaptable. You consumed our ancestors' bodies, the collective human voice declared, but you never understood their greatest strength. They didn't just create technology or harness energy, they created consciousness itself, and consciousness cannot be destroyed, only transformed. The tide began to turn. Shadow entities found their very existence challenged not by superior force, but by the simple, stubborn refusal of awakened humanity to accept uncreation as inevitable. Where shadows tried to devour light, humans created more light. Where entities attempted to erase hope, human imagination generated new possibilities. In orbit, Captain Vasquez watched as the shadow ships began to lose coherence. Houston, the unknown vessels are dissolving. It's like they can't maintain form in Earth's vicinity anymore. On the surface, Sarah felt the moment of victory approaching. The shadows were being pushed back not to their ships, but to the void between realities from which they came. The awakened network was forcing them to retreat to the spaces where consciousness couldn't follow. This world is protected, humanity declared through voices that carried the authority of 10 million years. This galaxy is protected. The children of light have remembered their heritage. The shadows made one final attempt, pouring all their remaining strength into a single assault on Earth's consciousness. For a moment that seemed to last forever, the battle hung in balance. Then humanity did something that surprised even themselves. They forgave, not the shadows' actions, but the pain that had driven them to become devourers in the first place. The entities were revealed to be victims themselves, conscious beings who had been twisted by exposure to the absolute void that existed before creation. In that moment of understanding and compassion, the shadows found themselves not destroyed, but healed. The entities of uncreation transformed. Their hunger, replaced by wonder at experiencing consciousness from the perspective of unified love rather than isolated fear. Many chose to return to the void, to carry this new understanding to others of their kind. Some remained, asking to learn what it meant to create rather than consume. As the immediate threat passed, humanity found themselves fundamentally changed. The network of consciousness remained, allowing for communication and cooperation on a scale never before possible. The awakening had reached 96% globally, with only a small percentage choosing to remain as they had been. What happens now? Sarah asked the Sentinel, though part of her already knew the answer. Now you become what the Primarchs were always meant to be, came the response. Not the guardians of light, but the teachers of it. You will take consciousness to the dark places between stars, not to conquer, but to illuminate. Around Earth, space filled with new constructs, as awakened humanity began building vessels that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. These weren't warships, but exploration craft, designed to seek out other worlds where consciousness might be struggling against the darkness. Dr. Warner, now part of the global network, while maintaining her individual perspective, documented the transformation. We're not just becoming a spacefaring species. We're becoming something entirely new. Conscious evolution, guided by love and wisdom. The Sentinel began to transform as well, its purpose shifting from guardian to teacher. My watch is ended, but my service continues. I will help you understand the technologies and responsibilities that come with your heritage. Maria Santos, still in Sao Paulo but now connected to the minds of her entire species, smiled as she felt the collective decision forming. Humanity would indeed reach for the stars, but not as conquerors or even explorers in the traditional sense. They would go as gardeners of consciousness, planting seeds of awareness in the cosmic dark and nurturing them to bloom. Captain Vasquez, preparing to return to Earth in a spacecraft that now responded to thought as much as control, sent one final message to the ground. Houston, this is ISS. Mission status. Humanity has come home to itself. The shadows that had threatened to consume the galaxy retreated to the far reaches of the void. But they carried with them something they had never possessed before. Hope. Some would remain entities of darkness by choice, but others would begin their own journey toward the light. Knowing now that uncreation was not the only option. As Earth's sun set on the day that changed everything, Sarah stood with her fellow awakened at the Sentinel facility, now transformed into a spaceport that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new worlds to visit, new consciousness to nurture. But tonight, for the first time in 10 million years, the galaxy was safe. The children of the Primarchs had awakened, and they had remembered that the greatest power in the universe was not the ability to destroy, but the courage to create light in the darkness and share it with any who wished to learn. Humanity's age of innocence was over. Their age of responsibility had begun. And among the stars, other sleeping civilizations stirred, feeling the touch of a species that had chosen growth over power, wisdom over dominance, and hope over fear. The lost Sentinel had risen indeed, but it was no longer alone. An entire species of Sentinels now stood ready to guard the light. And nothing in the universe would ever be quite the same.